right, Alexis.
Hey, Drew.
We are here with Aaron Walsh. Aaron, all the way from New Zealand, and this is Aaron's third appearance here on The Difference.
Yeah,
and,
he's a regular.
He's a regular, and the reason why we
keep to be a regular, very honored to be a regular.
Yeah, that's right. We're honored to have you, and the main reason is this is a great topic. Around wellness, and we've kind of had different conversations. So I'd encourage you, if you haven't listened to the other episodes, they kind of build upon each other. But this one's going to be all around how do we talked last time about how do we think about wellness for us as individuals, so leading ourselves through wellness. Mm-hmm. This is more about leading others from a wellness perspective, and how do we create an environment with our teams so that we can have conversations around both physical and mental wellness. Mm-hmm. And, as a leader, a big part of your job is creating the right environment for a lot of different things. And so that's kind of the conversation we're planning on today.
That's right. Yep.
So, Aaron, we'll jump right in and get your thoughts. So, for those that you don't know, Aaron works with a lot of athletes in different sporting.
Good.
It's a sporting organization, sport organizations, and to help with the mental skills side of sports. And so you deal with a lot of coaches, you deal with a lot of maybe even captains on the team, and there's definitely this environment and this leadership point of view in teams that a lot of sports are starting to get more and more adept into having these conversations. So you have a lot of experience in this, and we can apply that directly to the teams that we see in stores and distribution centers around Walmart. So if you want to, just kind of give us kind of a high-level view.
This is a lot of great subject. And I've actually been spending quite a bit of time with the dairy industry here in New Zealand. So these are our dairy farmers.
Oh, wow.
Not much different, so we have a massive dairy, or agriculture is our number one industry.
Yeah, sure.
So the dairy farmers are like massive here in the sort of the backbone of our country, but we're experiencing a lot of challenges through regulation and some of the policies, and just feel really, but they're high performing. Like I was with a group of Dairy Women's Network, and there were 12 of them, and all of them were owners of farms that were over $25 million in value.
Wow.
So just incredible people. So anyway, I think, what a great subject. So I think a few high level thoughts is that it's really interesting to think about wellness and environment, and to put those as a combination together. And, I guess from my experience in sport, and I think also within industry, one of the things that I think has become quite apparent to me is that sometimes with this wellness discussion, we really underestimate the impact of the environment that someone is in on their overall wellness. And so when we did some surveying around some of our elite athletes, one of the things that stuck out and sort of blew me away is I sort of had this presumption, which I think most people do, that sort of our wellness and well-being and all of that is predominantly about how we take what we're experiencing in real life and be able to interpret that. So when we come to work, we're right on point, we're sharp, we can separate that, it doesn't have an overlap, and the better way is actually we have good wellness, so that just complements our work life. But what we found was actually something quite the opposite, is that the main stress point for people were not actually what was happening at home bringing it to work, it was what was happening at work and taking it home. And I reckon that changes the conversation in quite a profound way, because it then allows us to look at our environments as part of our well-being strategy, and looking at our environments playing a significant role in our well-being strategy. So, for example, I'll give you this and then I'll hand it back to you. The British Olympic Committee did this better study I think it was with Harvard, and I don't know if they actually released it, but it was certainly a project paper that they worked through. And what they were asking the question is, what is the impact of environment on people's behaviors? So they were looking at it from a much more performance space, going, can we curate the environment to bring out the best of the best in people? And if we were to do that, what would that look like? And the study was quite profound, because it came back and basically said, well, we think from what we've surveyed in our conversations that around 80% of people's behaviors are determined by the environment they're in at any given time.
That's amazing.
And that changes a lot of our thinking, because we think that we have this bulletproof value system that is deeply embedded within us, that is not flexible to environment, where in fact the opposite happens, is that the way we behave in one environment, then the way we behave in another environment, the way we behave in the next environment is quite fluid and adaptable, as we have to sort of adjust our own behavioral standards to whatever context we find ourselves in. So here we are looking at the subject of well-being, puts tremendous pressure and weight, and pressure is probably the wrong word, tremendous emphasis on those taking care of their own personal well-being and looking after themselves. Yet I wonder if we have and for use of a better term, a corporate responsibility within the environments that we create to make sure that they're designed to enhance the well-being of our people.
You know, the 80% number, so let me get this right. So 80%, your performance is dictated, 80% of the performance that they saw is dictated by the environment that they work in or they're in.
So I'll give you an example. I don't know whether I'll have to talk about sport a little bit. You'll see NFL, NBA, all the major sports. Here's what happens. You'll have a guy that's underperforming or a girl that's underperforming, and you'll switch environments and they perform.
Yeah, totally.
And what happened there? Did their skill set change? Did they get fitter or? Oh, maybe. But what happened is they now feel like they belong. They now feel like they might be psychologically safe. And all of the energy that had been expended towards managing themselves in the environment now can be pointed towards their art or their craft or towards performance.
Yeah.
Wow,
I could totally see that.
Yes.
I can see that from the Patriots. You're a big fan of the Patriots.
Love them.
Yeah.
Big supporter.
Do you know where they're located at?
Patriot country.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And they in New England. And they
from Massachusetts, isn't it?
Massachusetts, yep, in Boston, or outside of Boston.
I was going to say that.
Yeah,
so,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But they have a knack for taking players from other systems and bringing them in and making them great. And you see it over and over and over and over again for like 20 years. So there's a sport environment where that makes sense to me. But even in our own world of a store, a distribution center, here at the office, I think I could totally see that. Even in a workplace or even myself, if the environment that I'm in is supportive of me, I feel valued, and it's not just that, it's just the way that the teams work together. My performance, for sure, it's an 80% difference.
Oh, absolutely. And in an environment, like, I also think about not just physical, but like the people you're around, the energy that's being, put around you, interactions and relationships with people that you're working with. And I mean, oftentimes, like, we've had a lot of associates that we've spoken to, and we've said, hey, like, what was one thing that catapulted you to want to move to some other area within the company or do something different? And most often it was environment. Like, it wasn't either a spot that they found themselves in that they really fit, or they wanted to be challenged in a different way, but it all kind of pointed to environment, people, relationships. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So cool.
All right, so Aaron, if you think about that, so there's a lot of things you can talk about for an environment, and we can jump into a lot of it. But I would think majority of it is your frontline leader, or it's your head coach, or it's the person that you report to. How much of it is it the leader's job to create that environment, and then how much of it is the organization's job, and possibly even the members on the team?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think if we back it up a little bit, one of the big things we've got to start looking at is if we were to curate an environment that has this in mind, what would be in it? And that is a really, really interesting process, because I've been in some environments which you have the competency of a senior leader to craft a vision of what that environment to look like, and it's brilliant and people buy it. But I've been in other environments where it's much more of a collaborative exercise, where everybody sort of jumps in and say, well, if we were to design our own environment, how would we design it and what would it look like? And but I think here's where I think the leadership is critical, is that the leader will send signals unintentionally or unintentionally every single day to the people that he leads around the environment and their status within it. I think that's the big issue. Is there an intentionality around? So what we understand is that the number one need for humans in a team is the need to belong. And that's not just a modern need. It's a very, very historical need that as a species, our survival was dependent upon belonging, right? If you got excommunicated from your tribe back then, you got isolated and you died. So this fear of isolation and this need to belong is hardwired into us at such a deep level that if we don't have leaders that send signals of belonging, we begin to get anxious and question and wonder, and then the compromising of our well-being begins to happen really, really quickly, where a great leadership's able to recognize what signals do I need to send to my team today to create that sense of belonging and enhance the energy of how they feel together as a team.
Yeah, so it's that fear of being not part of the tribe or not part of the team.
It's isolation.
Yeah, it's
rejection.
isolation.
It's what drives all of our fears.
Yep. Yeah, so that first step is creating
a huge leadership issue.
Yeah.
Huge leadership.
That's right. And it's that first step of creating that environment where people feel like they belong.
Yeah. And I really liked what you said, Aaron, because part of it is being intentional in that space with the people that you're leading, but then sometimes you give off certain cues or whatnot that you're not aware of that people are picking up on. And so how do you hone into that aspect? Like, how do you notice what you're unintentionally maybe putting out there?
Yeah, sure.
And how do you kind of fix that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, you make a really good insight. Owen Eastwood, who's a dear friend and mentor of mine, in his book called Belonging, he talks about this things of the silent dance that is happening in a room all the time, and these signals that are being sent, whether intentionally or unintentionally. I always go back to the critical thing of putting yourself, when you lead, in the position of where you were maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and you're walking to a room as a 21-year-old. What do you need to feel, and what do you need to see to feel like, oh yeah, I'm here, I'm safe, I belong, and I can just cast all that wasted energy away and focus on what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
So to me, there's this beautiful sweet spot that really good teams and really good leaders seem to be able to land on, and it's sort of, I explain it this way, where there's social belonging with a performance edge. What you don't want is social edge and performance belonging. Does that make sense? So
Yeah, totally.
We don't want people having to perform to belong.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we don't want belonging to be so much of a focus. There's no accountability around performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a balance. It's a balance for sure. And it's, this whole thing of how do you feel when you walk into a room is fascinating.
How do you feel when you walk into a room, Drew?
Depends which room.
Yeah. You know what? And our brains are so good at recognizing threat that our natural tendency will be to go, is it safe? That's almost like the first question. And we don't even know why we're asking it. But I think our ancestors would tell us we need to ask that question so we survive. Now that the game has changed, I'm wondering at times, as those walls and barriers that we sometimes subconsciously have through previous bad experiences, we still need to deal with those so we're open and transparent enough to actually belong to a group. Because belonging is not a one-way street of a leader creating an environment. It's a two-way street too of someone being part of that team, jumping in and diving in and creating ownership. And those signals will tell us all the time, right? I can be signals. So we're quite big here in New Zealand, especially in our sport, on little rituals. So when someone comes into the team, how do we welcome them? And it's got to be done well, because that's our first signal sending that you belong here and we want you to be a part of our team.
Yeah, so being intentional about it, right?
Oh my gosh.
We should think about that for various things. The one thing I want to kind of touch on or just dig on just a little bit is this balancing act of performance, having belonging, but performance with an edge. Kind of help me, or maybe help folks kind of understand that balance, that careful dance that we all make of saying, hey, we want to create this environment where we can fail, and this environment where you feel belonging, but at the same time, we want to win. right? We want to put ourselves in a position to excel, and everybody has a piece of the puzzle to play.
Probably the best way, Drew, for me to sort of explain it would be, there's a term that I've used with teams called conditional belonging. And we just need to get, I think, with teams out of the idea that we have unconditional belonging that's not attached to performance. There's only one place it happens, that's our families. Hopefully. We're free to just belong, pretty much irrelevant to how we perform, right? But every other part of our life, our belonging is connected to our performance, and we need to accept that, right? We just need to understand that I will belong here as long as I perform here. And that's okay. That's okay. Like, we can't look at, like, I work in professional sports, obviously. We can't say to someone, oh, we've created this beautiful family feel. We have this dynamic culture. We've got it based on making you feel like you belong. And then, hey, if you're playing poorly, that trumps selection. No, it doesn't trump selection. But there's still a belonging is a privilege that is undergirded by your ability to perform to the standards of your organization. And the moment we start dumbing that down or try and softening that message, then I think we lose the essence, or we walk away from, or we don't understand the depth of, like, what we're trying to do within our teams. Like, one of the most interesting things about well-being from a personal front, I don't know how you guys feel about this, is that some of my greatest well-being moments are around when I have something really difficult and really challenging and a massive bit of adversity, and I overcome it. I walk towards it and overcome it rather than walk away and bail from it. So think about that collectively. When a team actually walks towards difficult things together and overcomes them, and they work hard and they perform well, your well-being is so enhanced, because that's a magic part of our human experience, is overcoming challenges, right? And so I think this is an important part with our teams, where we recognize that, hey, yeah, you belong here. But, like, I know it's a little thing, but I very rarely, if not ever, refer to the teams I'm part of as a family. They're not a family. They're a team. Your family is where you probably get this sense of, I'm going to be me and I'm going to be loved no matter what. But on a team, there are conditions to belonging, and I think it's naive not to recognize those conditions.
Yep. I saw you thinking.
Dang it.
I saw you thinking.
Yeah.
When you hear conditional belonging.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind?
No, it's funny that you asked that. I think, and this goes back to various AES conversations. We have a question that is asked every time, and it's, do you feel like you belong? Do you feel like you fit in or are a part of the team? So when I heard conditional, I immediately was like, oh man, I bet there are a lot of people out there like, this is not good.
Triggering, isn't it?
Yeah, like,
triggering.
I feel unsafe right now.
Yeah.
But to a certain point, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, one, we are here to do a job, and to do it well. And I think it kind of goes back to having open communication. Here are the expectations. Here's how we can kind of work through this together. You're not alone in how you're feeling, but then always giving kind of that feedback, that constant and consistent, dialogue. I think that's important. And I think sometimes that is missing.
Yep.
And I think you're right around the aspect of, we talk about belonging, we always talk about autonomy. Like, I do think they go together. So, like, from a psychological aspect, one of the things that people need to feel outside of belonging to be part of a team and to be connected to that team is autonomy, meaning I know why I'm here. I know my role. I know what I bring to the table, and I know how I make the boat go faster. So that's just not a belonging. That's a performance. I understand why I'm here, what I'm doing, and I have clarity over my role, and I can see my impact. They've got to go together. They have to go together. Because if you have someone who feels like they belong but they're not contributing, then that belonging will be compromised at some point.
Yeah, I think it's important to distinguish between performance and characteristics of who you are. And what I mean by that is, I don't think what Aaron is saying is it's conditional of who you are as a person in any way, right? Which some people may think that. But it's not that, right? Yeah, free to who you are. But it's about the performance that you have to the job that you have been assigned, right? And that's where it gets a little bit, and you still have to have empathy through that.
True too, though. You bring a real interesting point up, which I think is worth us discussing at some point, is that that we've got so independent and so self-focused and so about our rights and so about who we are, is that there's times where you don't stop being who you are, but you recognize aspects of your personality are not always helpful in the way that it's being expressed for the team to perform better. And part of that humility is saying, I'm prepared to back off on some of these things, not because I'm compromising who I am, but I'm recognizing that it's not helpful to my team.
Yeah. Well, and I also think about the strengths conversation that we had, in the last episode. We spend so much time focusing on what our weaknesses are and how to improve that. And we don't spend a lot of time saying, hey, Drew, you're excellent at X, Y, and Z. Let's focus more on that. And that's why you're here. And you bring all these things to the table.
That's why you're here. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think we need to do more of that. I think that'll help.
Yeah. And also giving the feedback, kind of like we talked about last week with Nico.
Yeah. And that's why I'm sort of trying to bring it together for you guys to go, okay, we do have belonging on one hand, but we do have performance on the other. And I think it always goes back to the origin of our conversation, which is well-being is not the totality of performance, but is the foundation of performance. You can probably see now where that fits, like the belonging, the well-being, the connection, all of that, like essential, critical. But there's another aspect that's just as important. Can I express the gifts and the strengths that I've developed over the years? Do I understand who I am within this team and what role I have? Can I make the team better by my presence? There are performance conversations that enhance our belonging and are related to our belonging, but are a little bit different.
Yeah.
So why do you think that's triggering? I'm asking Alexis this. If you can't, I don't know if you can see us, Aaron, or not. See who are they talking to? Why? When you hear that, why is that?
Hear what?
When you hear this conditional belonging, this idea is tied to performance.
Oh,
because I felt the same thing. But why do you think that's could be? Why does it kind of make you kind of off-put it a little bit?
Oh gosh. Well, for me, I always think I'm underperforming.
Got it.
All the time. So when I hear something conditional,
so it's a fear
I'm like,
that kind of fear that jumps up.
Yeah. And so because I have what is it called? I guess imposter syndrome. Often.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah,
Everyone's
right.
got it.
And so like I listen to that voice a lot.
So a little
I don't
bit
know
of
what my strengths
so
are.
a little bit. So when you hear that, you're like, oh, maybe I'm not. It's conditional.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of where you feel like I don't know if I can live up to that.
Right. Or I say, hey, Aaron, so is there something you're trying to tell me? My boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that,
right.
I think people feel that way when they hear that term.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not a negative term.
Yeah.
Once you kind of break it down.
Why we feel that in a corporate environment, but like in a sports team, Aaron, that's just a given. It's just a given. Like if you don't score, if you don't perform, if you don't, whatever your job is on the team, it's just a given. Your contract's not going to be renewed, right?
Yeah.
It's so tied to performance. And so
I think we love the idea of having safety and guarantee without effort.
Interesting. Go on that.
Well, I think we love the idea of that. My belonging is not attached to something that I control. Like my belonging should be because of my last name or the company I work for, or because I've been recruited to this. That feels safe. That feels like that's not going to be compromised. There's not going to be a potential loss there. But when we say, well, yes, that's part of your belonging, but also another part of belonging is deeply your responsibility to be able to deliver on what you're here for. And I think that freaks us out because we don't necessarily, we want the guarantee without having to put in sometimes the work that's required. And so you think about it now, and I mean, pro sports is the ultimate in America.
Yeah, sure.
Like there's guys that are just getting cut left, right, and center who have been like heart and souls of teams and have been around for years. But I don't think they would be particularly disturbed by that. I think they recognize the fact that, listen, I've got older, or I've got slower, or I'm not as. So this is part of what I always knew would happen, is that I can't fulfill my role like I used to. And that would be crazy. Else the NFL would be filled with 55-year-old men who are hanging on because they have this sense of belonging and the teams can't cut them.
Yep.
That just doesn't work. So our belonging is attached to our performance. And that's a bit scary because exactly what Alexis says is that I feel that every day. I wake up and I go, they're going to find out that I'm not that good at what I do.
It's my greatest fear every day. Yeah.
Right.
And then that means, and so I think what we're referring to, what's the consequences of that? I don't have a job. I can't pay my mortgage.
Right.
My kids are on the street. Like we get so consequential, so deep back to this whole thing of, do I have to keep performing in order to belong?
So interesting.
Yeah.
We could go really deep on that.
Yeah, we really could.
Really good stuff. All right, so let's kind of get into some actions. So if I am if I'm a team lead, I'm running a team somewhere in the organization. What are some tips or tricks I should be thinking of how to create the right environment for me and my team to thrive, and specifically around wellness? Is there certain things they should be thinking about?
Yeah, I think it's all about connection. So, and what I mean by connection, are we connecting people to each other? That would be something that's pretty important. So, you hear about the concept of, particularly in sport, they say, we play for the person next to us. Well, my argument would be it's hard to play for someone you don't know. So how do you know? Like having that depth of relationship doesn't mean you're besties forever. Yeah. It just means that you understand what makes someone tick. Yep. You understand a little bit about their background. I would say then connecting people to the whole idea of what is the purpose of our team. So I think so many teams have outcomes, but they don't have purposes. They might have goals, but they don't have a purpose. And so winning isn't a purpose. Winning is a goal. A purpose is something great, but much, much bigger than that. So, I think there would have been tons of work done over the years with Walmart, I imagine, to understand like opening stores and selling stuff and, serving the community. That's cool. That's part of it. Yep. Okay. But what is the purpose? Connecting people to that, connecting people to the standards and the expectations, like you were mentioning before, knowing what's required of me when I walk in here, knowing that I have clarity and confidence over my role, connecting people to the aspects of their life that aren't involved with work, but are important to them. So you can see all these connection elements, right? So we're just connecting people like, do you know why we're here? Do you know why we do this? Do you understand? And that's why I love this word environment. Environment is really simple to me. Environment is a description of your experience of the culture.
Yeah.
So we can talk about the culture. That's one word. Great. What's your culture like? Don't really care. What's your environment? How do you feel every day when you go in there?
Yep.
Do you feel confident? Do you feel assured? Do you know your role? Do you feel like your strengths are, or do you feel nervous? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel worried? Do you feel like you're holding back? So there are all those, and an example of this would be, you have a look at teams, and there's sort of often two types of teams, right? There's teams like will say, we will get this done no matter what. But then there's also teams who love powwows and meetings and talking and discussing, and then they sort of give it a bit of a half-pie effort and go, oh, well, it just didn't work out.
Yep.
So there's an example, right, of connecting people with our culture, our environment. We make it work. So how do we do that? So I think it's big about connection.
Yeah, so I like this idea. And sometimes it's the simple things that make all the difference. And we tend to bypass some of the simple things. And so when I hear you say connection, it's connecting to each other as a team. It's connecting to your purpose as a team. What's your team purpose? And then connecting to you as your role in that purpose. And if you could, mate. Right? And if you could connect on those three things, everybody on a team, you've as a leader, you've created the environment where there's connection to something bigger than yourself. You feel belonging in it, from a connection to, like, everybody's connected on a team. And I know real clarity and what my role is on the team and how important that is.
I think that's a huge one. Role clarity. I think there are times where things get, unclear, or right. Like it's just, you're not sure where you fit in, or if I wasn't there, what puzzle piece is missing. I think that's. I'll
give you an example. Like I did some work with a team, and one of the things that we recommended doing, it was a bit of a risk, but it worked out unreal. And you know how like you buy a fridge or a freezer, and it has like a user manual.
Yep.
So what we asked is new employees to do a user manual. When I'm at my best, this is what is happening around me. These are my things that if you go here, you're not going to get the best out of me. Almost like an education. Like if you yell at me, if you're angry, this just doesn't work for me. Like, and it's so interesting. I got a 13-year-old son and a 17-year-old daughter. The 17-year-old daughter, every now and then, she just needs a little bit of a tune-up. I don't know if you use that term in America, but
I get it.
Just a little bit of firmness.
Attitude adjustment.
Awesome.
We call it attitude adjustment.
Right. So, but my son, if I went there with him, I'd crush him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Totally.
So like even having a little user manual. At my best, this is what I feel and do. This is the best way to lead me. Yeah. These are the things that you won't get the best out of me. So imagine coming in day one going, hey, a couple of things. Tell me about your family, your life, like why are you here? And secondly, did you bring that, your user manual with you? I want to know as your leader how I get the best out of you. And you know you better than anyone. Can you help me with that? Yeah. What signals is that sending to someone?
Yep. Yeah, it's the nuance in leadership. Like if I were to parent my firstborn the same that I do my secondborn, to the same that I do my thirdborn, which I think is a natural thing, right? Because you just kind of peanut butter spread, right? You're treating them all the same. That would be a disaster. Because I've tried that, to be honest with you. It didn't work. I learned very quickly that how I parented and quote led my son, who's firstborn, to my daughter, who's secondborn, to my other daughter, who's a thirdborn. All three of them require very, very different parenting, right? Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like my wife and I have been together 21 years, and I reckon the last 2 years have been some of the best years of our marriage, simply because we both decided that we're not very good at guessing what each other are thinking, and it's better just to let someone know.
Yep.
But we had this, same with employee-employee relationship, right? We have this assumption that they understand what we need, and when they don't deliver on it, it's because they were being intentional. We're 99 times out of 100, we don't even have the conversations.
Yeah. We can't read minds. Yeah, we can't read minds.
Yeah.
Can't read minds.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
So I think that's probably a big part of it from a leader is like, what signals are you sending to the people that you are leading that they belong here? And I tell you what, if you get them belonging, think of all the energy that they might have leaked during a day trying to answer that question that is now directed towards their work.
Yeah.
It's such an invaluable thing for people to feel and experience. Like I reckon if we went through the teams today, wouldn't it be really interesting to actually ascertain from some of the associates, like how much time do you reckon you waste trying to deal with your social status within a team, or like the sense of you're seeking reassurance all the time from your boss because you feel like you're an imposter and you don't know if you belong, and there's not much affirmation. Like there's so much energy wasted because we don't address these fundamental issues.
Yeah, physical,
and that's not towards performance.
It's probably physical energy, mental energy, and I think for sure creative energy goes down. Like when you are worried about, what your status is on the team or with your boss, your creative
all of those
energy probably goes to zero. Right? Yeah.
I love that idea though of that manual. I think sometimes we don't want to ask questions like that because one, it might feel like that's common sense, or I don't know how to approach that, or like, hey Drew, how should I go about this?
Let me see your user
with
manual.
You. Yeah. So, it using the language that fits you. But I think that that's fantastic. And it sets that precedent of you care and you want to know how we can work better together.
For example, with a player, I did it like this year, that tons like there's a player, and I'm just real honest. I'm like, I'll just make up a name. Hey, Johnny, you seem really perturbed, and I know you didn't play well in the weekend. It's now Monday. How do I reach you? Do you want space? Do you want me to engage with you? We've got to play again. So I just go straight there. I don't know what to do with you right now. In fact, it's bothering me a little bit because you have performance hangover that you're not able to flush. I want to help you with that. What do you think the best way is? A simple question like that.
That's really great.
That's so good, though. What was the answer? What is Johnny's answer?
The answer was, I want you to engage with me because I have a natural tendency towards isolation when I'm feeling rejected.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge to just even know about yourself and then be able to communicate that.
Well, I could say the same thing about 99.9% of people on the earth.
Yeah, that's right.
If you get rejected, you want to isolate. It's no different from 500 years ago. If you went out to hunt for your family and you got nothing, you want to go hide in a cave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And we've got an isolated society right now. who are isolated to their devices, and they're isolated away from community, and they're isolated away from the depth of relationship that we've had in our communities. And I think everyone's feeling that, and we have to explore how we can reinvigorate connection, but in a way that's authentic to this generation of people.
I like the intentionality behind it.
Yep. Good, man. This has been great. If I had a takeaway on this, it's the connection points really resonate with me.
Yep.
And that it's about creating a connection again to each other, to a purpose, and to your role in that purpose is fascinating.
I think we could build a whole leadership ethos around those three things,
totally.
right?
Yeah, totally. Totally.
That could be helpful.
Very helpful.
Yeah.
That's great. Aaron, any other, I know we're about out of time today, but any other tips and tricks or encouragement you could give? And maybe kind of to give it some context, maybe you're a new leader to a new team, like you're just taking over, you've been taking over in the last 30 days. Any advice for them as they get going?
Yeah, I think one of the things the only other thing I mentioned probably that we didn't touch much was, I think one of the greatest things a leader can do for a team is create an environment that encourages and facilitates personal growth. Like if you're in a team where you feel like you can grow as a person and in your craft, wow, you just want to stay in that team, right? But if you feel like there's no options to grow, or you feel like you're just spinning your wheels or you're stuck, I think that's a massive part. So, I just did it last week. We assembled for one of our teams, and about 30 of our young players over 2 days. And I had two questions of one area away from your sport and one focus in the sport where you want to grow this year. And it was just simple, right? It's a simple question, and they gave their answer. And then we just set up a growth plan. And my growth plans are real simple. Like, where are you? Where you need to be? How do we bridge the gap? That's all it is.
That's awesome.
And then we just work at bridging that gap. But I just think people feel really invested in when, I think, I just know as an employee as well of the teams I work with, when like the head of performance or the GM comes and says, listen, we want to invest in sending you to go and visit this team, or we want you to grow here, or we want to pay for this course. It's not just all about money, but it's about investing into someone getting better at what they do. There's such a belief and a confidence that just sort of it just swells within you when you feel like the people that you're working with believe in you.
Absolutely.
And that belief is translated into creating opportunities for you to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something about the simplicity, and Alexis, maybe even for your work, I'd keep in mind kind of what he said was, where am I? Mm-hmm. Where do I want to be? Yep. And then how do I bridge the gap? Like even some language, and we can take this out of the podcast, but even some of the language.
I would have you might have physical, you might have craft, you might have relational, you might have leader. Like it doesn't have to be just restricted.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, I think leader is an important part. So what sort of leader do you want to be? Where are you at currently? How do we bridge that gap?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It's not necessarily like, hey, I'm a team lead and I want to be a coach. It's not it. It's more about about these competencies or parts of the job.
Yeah, here's my current leadership capability. Yep. Here's where I need to get to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do to get to that?
Yeah. How do I bridge the gap?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to have the associate set those. So here's where I think I am. Here's where I think I want to be.
Yep.
And then it's the leader's job with the individual to then come up with the plan to bridge the gap.
Yes.
Yep.
But I think you got to give them options too, guys. That's probably the thing. I had a list of 10 things or 20 things away from the field, 20 things on the field. So they understood what I was talking about. So here's the options of areas that we think you could grow in. Which one do you want to do?
Yeah.
Got it.
And then they own it.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they own it because it resonates with them.
Yeah. Yeah. We should think about that. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Aaron. This has been great as our third episode, and we're going to have one more with you here in the coming weeks, which will dive into a few other topics. So really, really appreciate it. I know it's early for you there in New Zealand, but thanks for your time, and I appreciate all that you're doing.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, lovely talking to you guys again.
You
All right,
too.
yep. Thanks, Aaron. Have
Bye.
a great day.
Everyone have a great holidays and awesome part of the year.
Yeah, we
you.
will.
Likewise.
We will. Thank you. Stay safe.